Good morning. Glad to see all of you here and all of you with us on YouTube. My name is Judy Burgett, and I'm the worship associate for this morning. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And we have a few announcements. We have ongoing religious offerings each week on Wednesday night and Thursday night at 6:30. On Wednesday night we have Thinking About Theology, and on Thursday night General Conversations, and these are on Zoom, and they're really interesting conversations, and we welcome everyone to come. We have continuing yoga with Bridget. The next session will be on June 26th, and that is here after the service. And those are always relaxing sessions. And finally, we have the book club meeting is coming up on June 25th on Saturday on Zoom. And we are discussing defund fear, safety without policing, prisons, and punishment. And that is on Zoom, and we welcome everybody to join us, whether you have read the book or not. And Carol has a couple of announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. It's good to see you all. I am Reverend Carol Bodeau. I'm privileged to serve here as minister. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I want to give a special welcome to anyone who's here for the first time, visiting, new to us. We're really glad you're here this morning. A couple of other announcements just to give you a little more info about a few of these things. Which are more of the earth-based events that we're doing. Our next Earth Magic, you could call this Earth Magic, Earth Church. We are now actually listed officially as one of the Earth Church, Wild Church Movement churches. So if you go to Wild Church Network, on the internet, Google it, Wild Church Network, you will find Earth Church East Tennessee. And the West Side website is what it will give you as a website. The Wild Church Network is a movement where people of all denominations are discovering that they really believe that stewardship of the earth, really understanding our relationship to the land and what we call the interdependent web is extremely important and essential, and that we need to actually spend time in nature to experience it. So about once a month, we have an Earth Church gathering here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's one Sunday a month, and those are really fun. We spend a little time outside. We spend part of that time just wandering around in nature. There's no sermon. The sermon is nature. You get to lay on the grass or hug a tree or sit by the water feature. That's the sermon. And then we share some food and hang out and talk. An extended version of that, for those of you listening on YouTube or here in the sanctuary who don't know about it, I am leading a many-day retreat in the Smoky Mountains. That is an extended version of that. Time to be in nature, connect with other people, sit around a fire, assuming it's not 100 degrees, or maybe sit in the creek if it is. Spend time getting kind of back to what's really authentic and valuable. So Spirit Quest, that what is it that matters most to us? How do we connect with the interdependent web in a way that's really true for us? That's happening in August. So if you're interested, let me know. So now, all of that aside, we're going to enter into our time of being together in a worshipful way. Sometimes we don't know what worship, we think that word. That's a little bit of a tricky word. It just means putting our attention on what we think is worth our attention. Worthiness, worthshipa, the work of doing what is worthy. So take a deep breath, come into this room, in this moment, here and now, and let's, as Sandra plays for us, she's going to play some gathering music, and I want you to take time to become fully present. Following that, we're going to have another special announcement. Go ahead, Sandra. So we have one more special announcement. Judy, would you like to come up? Judy's got a little announcement she would like to make. Judy Winchester.
So I'm a little short to be behind there. Brad, does this work okay if I just stand right here? Okay, this works for me. Nice crowd today. We often hear the phrase, beloved community in the UU world. My husband, Jim, and I have greatly benefited from this beloved community in our 24 years at Westside. To have a community, you have to have people, and ours are slipping away from us for various reasons. In order to address this, I have created the Jim Winchester Congregational Growth Fund in memory of Jim. This is a way to give back to the church what that has given so much to us. This fund is only seed money to begin to address reversing the course we are on. It is my hope that with a dedicated fund, others who feel the same way will want to make contributions and grow the resources available to the board. Reverend Carroll and the members of the board have been working very hard to learn the most effective ways to grow the attendance and participation in all church activities. They welcome your time and creative ideas, but we all know that isn't enough, or we wouldn't be where we are today. It also takes cash. Together, we can make the vision of a vibrant church community serving the needs of the congregants a reality. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. So as many of you know, the world is changing. People are changing the ways they interact, the ways they create community, the ways they show up with each other. Things are changing fast, and COVID has accelerated those changes. So we as a community have to really think about, what does that mean for us? How do we move forward in a way that is vibrant and alive and meets the needs of the 21st century? The board has approved, and you all as a congregation approved, the funds for a new membership coordinator position, which will be starting In a couple of weeks, when we enter our new fiscal year, we'll have a new membership coordinator. We have someone we will tell you about soon, if the board approves that person today, who's going to be doing that job. And the funds that Judy has set up in memory of Jim give us the ability to pay for that position and some money towards resources for that position. So, thank you, thank you. So usually when I invite the bowl to sound, what I'm inviting you to do is get calm and settle and center and all that. Not today. Today, when I invite the bowl to sound, I'm going to invite it to wake you up. I'm going to invite you to wake up the parts of yourself inside that are inspired, that are creative, the parts of you that are interested in making something new happen, that are excited about growth and possibility and the future. We need to be in a centered place. We need to be in a restful place often to find that. So yes, be centered and be present. And as I invite the bowl to sound, I invite you to let the creative spark inside you wake up.
Carol is going to light the chalice for us, and I have a few words to say about Father's Day. These are a couple of quotes I ran across that kind of resonated with me, and the first one is from Leo Biscaglia, said, "If there is any mortality to be had among us human beings, it is certainly only in the love that we leave behind. Fathers like mine don't ever die." And Steve Martin said, "A father carries pictures where his money used to be."
We keep on our chancel a couple of spare candles next to our chalice. These are community candles. So today is Father's Day. And fathering is a many-gendered task. It's a many-personage task. It's a task that has to be done in many places, in many ways, by many people, in many different contexts. So for whatever that means to you, I want you to think of the persons in your life who have played that role. And I'm going to light one of these candles just to honor that energy and that presence in our lives. And I'm going to light the second candle for all those who are suffering in our world, for all who are struggling, for whom they don't feel safe, they don't have the luxury or the privilege of a comfortable place to be right now, who might be struggling with mental health issues or physical safety issues, who might be suffering in any of a number of ways that is part of the human condition. Let us just take a moment to be present with that. So, okay, easy question. What holiday is today? Juneteenth. Somebody said Juneteenth. It's Father's Day, but it's also Juneteenth. So, today is June 19th. And the opening words I'm going to read to you this morning are about Juneteenth, sort of. In 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, which freed all slaves in the United States, the news of the emancipation of the slaves finally got to Texas. 2.5 years after it was signed. The news finally was made a reality in the last holdouts of slavery when federal troops arrived in Galveston to ensure that African Americans would be freed there. We begin today with an excerpt from that proclamation, which is remembered and celebrated by African Americans and anyone who honors true liberty in this country as Juneteenth, June 19th, okay? This is an excerpt from the proclamation issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st of 1863. And that didn't get to Galveston until June of 1865. Whereas on the 22nd day of September in the year of our Lord 1862, a proclamation, he's referring back to the proclamation that was signed the previous September, issued and stated in January. A proclamation was issued by the President of the United States containing, among other things, the following, to wit: that on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be, if they do not, this is complicated wording, shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then thenceforward and forever free. So what this said was, hey, Texans, set them free or you're in rebellion against the United States. We can make war on you. Okay? Shall be thenceforward and forever free, and the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons and will do no act or acts to repress such persons or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom. So then the proclamation goes on to list all the states where, hey, you people, keep holding slaves after this date, you're in open rebellion against the United States. Okay? So today we're honoring Juneteenth and the incredible change that was made by this one statement. And it ain't done. Will do no acts or acts to repress such persons in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom. We get to continue to live into that every day. The choir is going to sing some special music for us. The words to this song, choir, you can come on up and get lined up as I explain this. The name of this song is Wo Ya Ya, and those words are Ghanaian. They were written by a drummer from Ghana. His name was Sol Amarafio, and he was part of a group that was called Oisibise, and their first album was actually titled Wo Ya Ya, which means we're going, let's go, in the language of Ghana. And so this song is about pick your journey, the journey of a community, the journey of a nation, your personal journey. We're going. You all have a job with this. You're going to have to help me clap. Okay? When I start clapping, your job is to join in and keep clapping in rhythm to support us, okay? Whoop, I didn't get my page right. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know this, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. We'll be hard, we know, and we'll go. Judy just said that's the best we done it. It was because you had the technical support of the congregation. It's a team project. You know, we don't necessarily know where we're going or how we're going to get there always. We have to have something inside of us that says, okay, we're not exactly sure what the path is. We're not exactly sure how we're going to get there. We're not exactly sure what the outcome's going to be, but by gosh, we have it within ourselves to move forward. And that takes all of us showing up. Every week we take an offering. This is an opportunity to put a little cash in the plate to help our Share the Plate partner. And our Share the Plate partner currently is the Unitarian Universalist Association. We donate part of what comes in the plate to our Share the Plate partner. The bigger deal here is even if you don't put something physically in the plate, just know that showing up and adding your spirit and your energy, even if it's just clapping during the song, that matters and makes a difference. The offering will now be greatly received as Sandra shares some more music. Thanks, Sandra. All right, so today we get to merge a whole bunch of really cool things all in one topic. The Artist's Way, social justice, and Juneteenth. Okay? So, this is where you get to watch the creative force in action. Okay? So, how many of you are familiar with Julia Cameron's book from 1992, The Artist's Way? Is anybody familiar with The Artist's Way? Okay, so here's the story on The Artist's Way. Julia Cameron is a writer who's written in a lot of genres. She's written a lot of screenplays. She was a writing coach and a writing teacher. And in the 90s, a bunch of her students had been coming to her saying, we're just, how do you get past writer's block? How do you get past writer's block? So she created this program called The Artist's Way, which is, I think it's a 10 or 12-week program. You can buy the book. And each week, you read the chapter and you do some exercises. There's some very basic things that she encourages you to do to get out of writer's block. And she encourages you to extend this beyond thinking of yourself. It's not just for writers. It's for anybody who's trying to be creative. And I would say that in our world right now, there is nothing we need more than some creative solution building, right? We need some creativity, right? How many of us are feeling a little stuck and uncertain how to take the next step? Like, we look at the world and we're like, what do we do? What do we do? So creativity applies. It might be your personal life. How do I get unstuck out of this personal situation? How do we as a community get unstuck out of a rut we're in, maybe as a congregation? How does my family get out of this rut we're in, right? So creative processes are good for every layer of living experience. So here's how she proposes you use the Artist's Way. The Artist's Way is, first, you got to dedicate some time every day to being a little creative, or at least letting yourself focus on creativity. She uses a practice called morning pages. So you get up every morning before you've started with your to-do list, before your brain has kicked into beta mode and you're going to solve everybody's problems. You get up in the morning and you hand write 3 pages, doesn't matter what they are. I hate writing morning pages. This is so stupid. I have nothing to say. I wish I could have my coffee now. I've got so much to do. Think of your college freshman English teacher. I was that person for many years who made you do free writing. Okay? So 3 pages of morning pages every day. You're not going to read them. They're just to get it out of your system. They're just to get your system flowing. There are writing exercises, sometimes artistic exercises that you do. So, some fun stuff. One of my favorite tools of the Artist Way is what she calls the artist date. Every week, you have to go do one thing for yourself and with yourself alone, not with somebody else. It's not about pleasing anybody else. Do something for and with yourself that's fun and sparks creativity. So, for example, one of my favorite things to do when I'm having an artist date is go to a fabric store and wander around and touch the fabric. I discovered that at Christmas time, one of the reasons I liked Christmas shopping was that I just liked the colors and I didn't actually have to buy anything. Like, I could enjoy the artistic part of Christmas without having to spend so much money. An artist date might be sitting by a creek. It might be sitting in a park and counting the number of dogs with short tails that go by. Whatever it is, right? It's one thing for you. Okay. So the basic idea of the Artist's Way is to cultivate creative expression and creative inspiration. Now, why would you want to do that? Because it's 10 weeks and you commit to writing morning pages every day and doing an artist date every week and doing some writing exercises. Why would you want to do that? To get unstuck in whatever way you feel stuck. It helps us to feel free to, express ourselves. It might be sadness we might be needing to express. It might be goofiness. It might be a new sense of identity. It might be questions, whatever it is. I will say this about doing the Artist's Way. Some of you here I know have done it, and everyone I've ever talked to who's done it, the thing about it is this: it's not really about getting your novel finished, although that might be a side effect, right? It's really about inner transformation and being able to express things differently in the world. The few times, I've done it about 4 times in my life, and it has a much greater impact on my emotions than my artistic art output. So it affects how I feel and how I think. Actually, it's changed my career a couple of times, right? When I spent time to really say, what would be creative? What's the best expression of my creativity? What really do I love? What am I really thinking about? So it changes our perspective and our ability to see ourselves in a way in the world that is more creative. So this is really interesting, given that the last few weeks, some of you will notice, we've been talking about art. When we talked about pride, artistic expression has been important to the LGBTQ plus movement. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's important to Juneteenth. What does art mean? How many of us, now let's ask this question first, how many of you consider yourselves artists? How many of you consider yourselves closet artists? How many of you would like to consider yourself a closet artist, but you're too embarrassed to do so? What is it about art? We have this tendency to think that art is this thing that's, for 1, leisure time, 2, kind of extraneous and not really all that necessary, 3, only very few people can actually do it, right? The artist's way, taken as a more metaphorical journey, is actually about discovering the fact that every single one of us is an artist in some form or other. Our lives are works of art. Every day when you get up and take action in the world, you are living the art of your own life. So our lives are artistic expression, right? All of us are artists in one way or another. So now, okay, think of your preferred expressive mode when you're creative. Maybe it's crayons. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe it's the perfect bath towels, right? A deeper understanding of what art really is to understand that art is designed to transform something into something more beautiful, more authentic, more real, more expressive. It's to get to the heart of things, right? Art at its best shifts our sense of where we are in space. It shifts our perspective. It uplifts us or encourages us. It changes our understanding. Maybe it helps us make different choices. And then it affects how we live in the world. Right? So think about your favorite form of art. Let's use the most kind of silly example, which is, I am a personal fan of Chip and Joanna Gaines and the Magnolia Network and home design, for anybody who watches cable, right? They are all about the perfect fixture and the perfect colors. Now, I don't do that. I live on a farm. That's not what my house looks like. But the idea that what color somebody puts on their bathroom wall makes a difference, that's actually art, because it's using our senses to change our experience of the world, to somehow uplift, inspire, transform, somehow change how we experience things. Okay, so as a community this summer, we're focusing on creativity. Last week, we talked about how LGBTQ plus justice has been deeply shaped and shaping of artistic expressions. We had poetry, there's music. Think about all the ways that the arts, poetry, music, painting, theater, fiction writing, all these different things. Think about how they're part of social change, how they create social change and then are in turn shaped by social change. So I'm sure we have our own examples of this, right? There are many moments in history where artists have expressed some essential truth about the human experience, about justice, about liberty, in a way that actually made a big impact. Some of those are positive and some of those are not so positive. Think about how art is used to change our minds in all kinds of ways. Here are some of my personal favorites. How many of you remember the film Brokeback Mountain? World-changing film. World-changing film. All right, for a slightly younger crowd, Avatar: Last Airbender. Anime it's an art form that has literally transformed our society. So for those of you who are older and older generations, if you are unfamiliar with that and you would like to talk to anyone under the age of 30, I highly recommend you go look at some anime. And Avatar: Last Airbender is an awesome place to start. Okay? How about Amanda Gorman? Anybody know who Amanda Gorman is? Amanda Gorman read her poem, The Hill We Climb, on the occasion of President Biden's inauguration. Now, she is an interesting access point into the way the arts and justice work. So on that day, Amanda Gorman, who I believe was maybe 14 at the time she gave that. Oh, she was older? Okay. All right. She was a teenager. She was a young woman. She read her poem. She was wearing a ring on that day. And the ring was a bird in a cage. Anybody got any guesses who that refers back to? Maya Angelou. And the gift of the ring was given by Oprah Winfrey, who Oprah Winfrey gave Amanda Gorman this ring. So a young Black poet speaking at an inauguration, wearing a gift by an African-American creative force, Oprah Winfrey, and the image of the caged bird honored Dr. Maya Angelou, who's also Oprah's mentor, and the ring refers to the first book in Maya Angelou's autobiographical series. The book is called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Maya Angelou had read her poem On the Pulse of Morning at the inauguration of Bill Clinton. These poems are about social change. They're about movements into justice. They're about social equity. They're about racial equity. They're about the liberty and justice and equity that we proclaim as a nation. So you have all these different things happening. That ring is an artistic expression. Somebody loved to make jewelry, and they made a ring that honored Maya Angelou's book. Isn't that amazing? So Maya Angelou's life actually is a wonderful study in the way creative expression is tied to social change. So her whole life is like a tour de force of the arts, okay? So most of us remember her now as a poet. She was actually first a professional dancer. Maya Angelou was one of Alvin Ailey's students and dance partners. She danced with Alvin Ailey. She was the prima ballerina in the European touring company of Porgy and Bess, which was the first all-Black musical with a theme of Black culture that was shown in white theaters. Okay, so we got dance, we got musical theater. She was a calypso singer. Her nickname was Miss Calypso. So think of this, she's doing these radical, really justice things. She's a Black prima ballerina in a Black musical, in a black performance, touring Europe. Then, after that, she worked in the civil rights movement. She was involved in Malcolm X's Organization of African American Unity. And when Malcolm X was assassinated and the organization collapsed, she was the Northern coordinator for Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And then she started writing. Then she started publishing poems and creating her autobiography. And then after that, then she went into theater, into television and film, right? So she acted in over a dozen films, including Roots. She wrote 7 films and documentaries and became a director as well. Think about all the different art forms she made her way through. For her, the creative force was a creative force, and it had lots of outlets. So, Juneteenth. I heard a wonderful story the other day about someone who's doing something similar, using the creative arts to make justice happen in the world. I heard this on NPR. It combines the artistic work of W.E.B. Du Bois, pianist Margaret Bond, and the voices of a new generation. So in the early 20th century, Black sociologist, historian, and activist Du Bois, he wrote a poem called Credo. And Credo is about a world free of Jim Crow laws. Now, so this poem was written in about, I think it's written in about 1910, 1915. In the 1960s, another artist, pianist Margaret Bond, takes this poem and creates a piano piece and a choral version of the poem, right? And it gets performed once, and then Margaret Bond passes away, and the piece gets lost. And now, Laura Downs, who some of you might have heard Laura Downs' name, Laura Downs is a pianist who is also the host of NPR's Amplify show. Laura Downs has taken this piano piece that Margaret Bond created to go with W.E.B. Du Bois' poem, and Laura Downs is performing it again and inviting young people to send in their voices, their expressions of what their credos would be. Some of them are doing it as music, some of them are doing it as poems. It's a project called I Believe. And you can go on Laura Downs' website and you can, especially if you're a young person, you can click a button and you can add your voice. You can add your voice. Other powerful artistic expressions for justice and liberation, particularly African American liberation, include rappers. Think about hip hop and rap. Think about musicians who are frankly too often dismissed by older, particularly white generations and communities, because those voices come with such honesty and reality about the life for African American people, and they are disruptive and they disrupt the quiet of privilege, right? So there are all these ways that justice is part of the creative world, and that creativity is essential to justice. I was talking about this at home this weekend, and my oldest kid, Shannon, and their partner were visiting, and I hadn't said that this was what the service was about, and they were talking about, oh, we got to get back to Asheville because we got to do this art project. I'm like, do tell. And they said, well, there's a big movement, there's a big justice movement that's about environmentalism, and it's all Green New Deal stuff, and we're in charge of the art part. I said, fascinating. What you doing? And they were telling me about all the people they'd gathered together so that they were going to be making art and creating art installations and things like that as part of this justice movement. So, let's go back to the question I asked you earlier. When you think of art and the inner artist, the secret closet inner artist, what's your favorite art form? Now, how could you use it not just for leisure, but for transformation in the world? How many of you know about how quilts were used during the era leading up to the Civil War? The most important role. Somebody who knows, back there in the back. Somebody, go ahead and shout it out. You, go for it, yes.
Didn't they put them up on the marks to indicate places that people on the Underground Railroad could safely go to?
Absolutely.
Well, that wasn't the one I heard.
What'd you hear?
Maps.
They are maps, yes.
Carry the post with them.
Yes.
Carrying them.
Yes. So for those of you who might not have heard that, quilts, domestic arts, have been used as liberation tools for a long time. During the era of the Underground Railroad, the quilts were used. A particular quilt hanging on a barn or on a line was a marker to slaves who were running, that they could stop at that place and they would be safe, they would be protected. And also, people would they would sew into the quilts actual, like, pictures of, like, here's a barn, and here's a tree, and here's a river. Look, beautiful little domestic scene, but it was actually a map. The quilt would keep you warm, but it was also the way you would find your way to the next safe house. Fascinating, right? Think about your art form. We know that images and sounds and narratives have powerful impacts on the way we think and act. Think about how much we are becoming conscious of the power of marketing. Think about how stressed out you get when you watch something on television that's got that music, oh no, right? The music alone has the power to change your entire mood and stress you out or cheer you up. Think about how much sway that can have on our way of being. When we're thinking about ways to engage in justice, let's not forget the power of creative expression, of poetry and dance and music and the visual arts, even the material arts like quilting and jewelry making and even cooking. Think about what a powerful statement it is when someone cooks in the traditional way of their ancestors. Okay? That's a powerful expression of our heritage and our identity and what we value. So one of the places I would encourage you all to take a look at this week is the website of the National Black Arts Festival. There are multiple places where you can look at the work of African American artists working for liberation. Actually, North Carolina has some African American liberation art specific sites, which is wonderful. Take a look at that. Sometimes we think of art as a leisure activity, but it's actually a path to liberation and justice. Artistic expression can be a radical and powerful way to spark social change. So, think about it for just a minute. How could you use art to spark social change? I'm imagining Christmas cards you might hand make for family members who see the world in a different way politically than you. Think about that for a minute. Think about the art you might gently share with other people that offers a different perspective. I was writing this sermon and I thought, well, what do I want to do with this? And it occurred to me that it kind of might be fun to have an art project here at Westside with all you closet artists and the few of you who actually claim it. All of us closet artists. I'll add myself to the list. So here's what I think we should do. And I'm going to be posting some things in the newsletter in the next few weeks about this and putting some things on the website. But what if we were to create an Art for Justice project here at Westside? What if we were to say, you know what, maybe in the fall we're going to have a couple weeks or a service that's just dedicated to our own art about justice. And maybe between now and then we could do some collaborating. People can write poetry. They can write music. Somebody can rap. Somebody can make jewelry. What if we had our own West Side art extravaganza to change the world? So, I love the faces you all are making, let me just say. I'm seeing like, ooh, and ooh, and oh man, there she goes again. But think about it. Let yourself think about it. What might you create and what might you be inspired to wish to see changed in the world? Not all transformation comes from marching on the streets. Not all transformation comes from writing letters. Those are wonderful things. But we say a picture is worth 1,000 words for a reason. I know that there are iconic images and sounds that echo through your mind as moments of profound awakening, understanding, and change that impacted our world. The photographer who took the picture at just the right moment, the artist who captured the concept, right? The song that had just the right melody or words. So, think about what you're going to contribute to our art extravaganza. I'm about to exchange our chalice. It's got me all choked up. I'm going to extinguish our chalice. Take your creative spark. It's totally choking me up. Take your creative spark and nurture it and take it into the world this week. Go in peace. Woo, and inspiration. Attempt to launch our Zoom coffee hour for those of you who might show up. That may be going away in the coming weeks. The board will be looking at that today. But please, those of you who are here, take a minute to have a cup of coffee and visit with your neighbors, especially those of you that are new. We welcome you.
I've been getting asked for this.